On Sunday afternoon, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced in its 7th operational communique that 4 ballistic missiles had struck the USS Abraham Lincoln, the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier operating in the northern Arabian Sea off Oman's coast. The same vessel whose flight deck had been launching FA-18E Super Hornets and F-35C stealth fighters against Iranian targets since Saturday morning. Within minutes, U.S. Central Command posted a response on X, calling the claim a lie, stating that the Lincoln was not hit, that the missiles did not even come close, that the carrier continues to launch aircraft in support of CENTCOM's relentless campaign. What CENTCOM did not deny is that the Lincoln was fired upon. 4 ballistic missiles were launched at a U.S. aircraft carrier. Whether they struck the hull or splashed into the Arabian Sea 500 meters away matters enormously for damage assessment, yet matters almost nothing for strategic analysis. Because the fact that Iran targeted the most valuable single military asset in the U.S. fleet with ballistic missiles during an active combat operation means that the escalation ladder has already been climbed past every rung the 4 to 5 day war plan was designed to avoid. That plan's existence was revealed on the same day the Lincoln came under fire, published by Yedioth Ahronoth, Israel's largest circulation newspaper, a source whose proximity to the Israeli defense establishment makes its reporting functionally semi-official. According to Ynet's analysis, U.S. officials had envisioned a short campaign lasting 4 to 5 days designed to pressure Tehran back to the negotiating table. The operational timeline assumed Khamenei dead by Sunday, the Iranian population celebrating in the streets by Monday, a regime change process underway by midweek, markets opening to a victory narrative. Through a mediator, reportedly Italy, an American official proposed a ceasefire on the second day. Iran categorically rejected the offer. Ynet then delivered the verdict that should define every subsequent analysis of this conflict. The Ayatollah's regime has not collapsed. That sentence was written by the country whose military executed the strike, published in the newspaper whose readership includes the pilots who flew the missions, confirmed by the same intelligence establishment that tracked Khamenei to his compound. The mechanism behind the 4-day plan was the Syrian model, the logic that produced the fall of Damascus in December 2024, where the removal of Bashar al-Assad triggered institutional dissolution so rapid that no ceasefire was needed because there was no government left to negotiate one with. Trump applied that template to Iran explicitly when he told Iranian security forces to peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots, a phrase that mirrors precisely what happened when the Syrian army disintegrated and its remnants were absorbed by the opposition. The problem is that Iran in 2026 is the structural opposite of Syria in 2024. Because the IRGC is not the Syrian army, the constitutional succession mechanism was designed to survive exactly this scenario. Ali Larijani assumed governing authority within hours. Ahmad Vahidi was appointed the new IRGC commander within 24 hours. The Provisional Leadership Council was activated by Sunday morning. The missiles continued launching from platforms whose targeting packages had been pre-delegated before the first bomb fell. The Syrian model required the security forces to stand down. Iran's security forces fired 4 ballistic missiles at a U.S. aircraft carrier. CENTCOM's credibility on casualty reporting has followed a pattern over the past 48 hours that every journalist covering this conflict has noticed without always stating openly. On Saturday evening, CENTCOM stated that it had suffered no casualties, noting that light damage to facilities had not disrupted operations. By Sunday morning, CENTCOM confirmed 3 American service members killed in action and 5 seriously wounded, with several others sustaining shrapnel injuries and concussions. The gap between no casualties and 3 dead arrived within 12 hours. CENTCOM called the Lincoln claim a lie within minutes of the IRGC's announcement, yet the same command initially denied casualties that it subsequently confirmed. Every intelligence analyst, every defense correspondent, every institutional investor currently making decisions based on CENTCOM's real-time updates is now applying a correction factor to each statement. Not because CENTCOM is necessarily lying, but because the fog of war produces initial assessments that subsequent reporting consistently revises in one direction. While the Lincoln was being targeted, the Palau-flagged oil tanker Skylight was burning off the Omani coast near the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz, struck by what international shipping agencies identified as an Iranian anti-ship missile, while transiting with Iranian and Indian crew members aboard. Oman's Maritime Security Center confirmed 4 crew members were injured before the 20-person crew was evacuated. The Skylight is now confirmed sinking, making it the first commercial vessel lost in the Strait of Hormuz since the Iran-Iraq tanker war of the 1980s. It was one of 3 civilian ships hit in the strait on March 1st, the same day CENTCOM announced it had struck and sunk an Iranian Jamaran-class corvette at Chabahar Pier in the Gulf of Oman. The exchange is significant. The U.S. Navy sinks an Iranian warship, while Iran sinks a commercial tanker. The warship is a military loss that can be absorbed. The tanker is an economic signal that cannot be ignored, because it tells every shipowner on Earth that the strait is a combat zone, where commercial vessels are being destroyed. The insurance industry has already delivered its verdict. Lloyd's of London sources told Reuters that war risk premiums for Gulf transit have risen to levels not seen since the 1980s tanker war, with multiple insurers declining to write policies at any price. Maersk, one of the world's largest container shipping companies, announced Sunday that it was suspending all vessel crossings through the Strait of Hormuz until further notice. Reuters reported that at least 150 tankers have dropped anchor in open waters before reaching the strait. Kpler, the commodity data firm whose vessel tracking covers every major shipping lane, published an analysis stating that the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed for commercial shipping, despite technically remaining open, because insurance withdrawal is doing the work that physical blockade has not, with the outcome for cargo flow being largely the same. That distinction between technically open and effectively closed is the single most important economic fact of this conflict, because it means Iran does not need to physically block the strait with naval vessels to achieve the same result. The insurers have done it for them. The oil market has priced the opening chapter of this reality. Brent crude surged 13% to above $82 per barrel on Sunday, the highest level since January 2025, while West Texas Intermediate jumped more than 8% to $72.57. UBS analysts told clients that Brent could reach $100 per barrel if disruption continues, while Barclays warned that a material sustained disruption could send prices above $120. Rystad Energy's Jorge Leon assessed that most of the strategic initiative now lies with Iran, a sentence that inverts the entire premise of Operation Epic Fury because the operation was designed to seize the initiative from Iran permanently. OPEC Plus convened an emergency meeting on March 1st, agreeing to expand production by 206,000 barrels per day, a figure that would offset approximately 1% of the 14 million barrels per day that normally transit the strait, which means the production increase is a political gesture rather than a supply solution. Asian markets opening Sunday evening will price this reality before London or New York open on Monday, meaning the economic consequences of this conflict will reach consumer prices in Asia before Congress has finished debating whether the operation was legally authorized. The ceasefire rejection through Italian intermediaries reveals something that the 4-day plan apparently failed to model: that the traditional diplomatic channels between the U.S. and Iran have been destroyed by the operation itself. Oman, which mediated the February 6 nuclear talks in Muscat, saw 2 drones strike its Duqm commercial port on Sunday. Qatar, which has hosted indirect U.S.-Iran negotiations for years, had 2 ballistic missiles strike Al Udeid Air Base and an early warning radar installation destroyed. Saudi Arabia confirmed Iranian attacks on Riyadh and its eastern province. Every Gulf state that traditionally serves as a diplomatic intermediary has now been struck by Iranian missiles, leaving Italy, a Mediterranean country with no territorial presence in the Persian Gulf, as apparently the last available channel. When that channel delivered the ceasefire proposal, Iran said no. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told ABC News that no country's leader has the right to tell Iran not to respond to strikes of this magnitude, while simultaneously telling interviewers that a new supreme leader could be elected within 1 to 2 days. Russia's Sergei Lavrov spoke with Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Sunday, with both sides condemning the U.S. and Israeli military strikes and calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities. That joint statement transforms the diplomatic landscape because it means the 2 permanent members of the UN Security Council, with veto power, have publicly aligned against the operation, foreclosing any possibility of Security Council authorization for the ongoing strikes, while simultaneously providing diplomatic cover for Iran's retaliation. The 4-day plan apparently assumed that decapitating the regime would create a political vacuum that American-backed forces could fill before international opposition consolidated. Instead, the regime's constitutional succession is functioning, the IRGC is operating under new command, Russia and China have aligned against the operation within 36 hours. The ceasefire has been rejected through the last available intermediary. 3 American soldiers are dead. The Lincoln has been fired upon. The Skylight is sinking. 150 tankers are anchored outside the strait waiting for insurance that may not come at any price. Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, told reporters Sunday that he has seen no intelligence to support the administration's claim that Iran was planning a preemptive strike. Trump shifted justification on Sunday, telling interviewers that Iran was 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon, a timeline that neither the CIA nor the Defense Intelligence Agency has published an assessment supporting. The same intelligence officials who contradicted the ICBM justification 3 days before the strike have not confirmed the 2-week nuclear claim. Congressional Democrats are now preparing an emergency vote on a war powers resolution requiring either authorization or termination of military operations. Meanwhile, Trump told The Atlantic on Sunday that Iran wants to talk, adding that he has agreed to do so. The gap between Iran wants to talk and Iran categorically rejected the ceasefire is not a contradiction Trump has resolved publicly, yet it defines the operational reality of an administration that planned a 4-day war and is now navigating day 2 with no exit that Iran has agreed to provide. The 4 to 5 day window was the operational assumption on which every downstream calculation was built. The interceptor stockpile consumption rate, the carrier positioning schedule, the Gulf base exposure duration, the market timing, the political narrative arc from victory to normalization. Day 2 of a 4-day operation should have been the day when ceasefire acceptance created the diplomatic off-ramp. Instead, it is the day when 4 ballistic missiles were launched at a U.S. aircraft carrier, a commercial tanker was sunk in the Strait of Hormuz for the first time since the 1980s, 3 American soldiers were confirmed dead, the world's largest shipping company suspended Hormuz transit, 150 tankers dropped anchor rather than risk passage, Brent crude hit $82, the ceasefire was rejected through the last available intermediary, Russia and China jointly condemned the operation, the top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee said the justification was unsupported by intelligence, the IRGC launched its 7th wave of attacks, the Provisional Council continued governing, the foreign minister conducted diplomacy on American television, while hypersonic missiles flew at American bases. The plan was 4 days. The regime has not collapsed. The exit requires Iran's cooperation. Iran has just told Italy no.